Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Hormonally Speaking. We are coming upon the end of 2021. It's hard to believe, but I wanted to get one last interview out this year for you to listen to because I follow this woman on Instagram and I find her so inspiring, especially for maybe those of us that did not get into moving our bodies much until sort of later in life, and especially in terms of like really getting into the muscles and the strength building that I think so many people think can't really happen later, especially for women, and it totally can. And she's going to tell us all about that today. Her name is Tina Tang, and she is a latecomer to fitness starting at age 42. Before starting as a strength coach in 2012, Tina was an equities trader at Goldman Sachs and later transitioned to a jewelry designer who owned various stores in New York City. Over the past 9 years, Tina has coached over 3,700 sessions, trained her female clients to their first push-ups, pull-ups, and compound barbell lifts. Strength is her specialty. Tina is a Fit at 50 coach and the creator of the 4S formula to help midlife women get stronger and leaner through one-on-one coaching and her online group fitness classes. Tina specializes in training women over 40 and teaches them how to take control of their bodies by getting progressively stronger. You can find her on Instagram at Iron Strong Fit. And also she's going to be one of the guest experts in my upcoming program that starts mid-January called the Hormone Breakthrough Blueprint. And I'm so excited to have her a part of it.
I'm so excited to hear.
Yeah.
Hi. When you're reading that bio, I was like, ooh, I sound so good.
You do. You're like kicking ass for sure. I'm like, that's amazing. And I mean, it's interesting, right? Because with your background, I can see how it's kind of good with that sort of business background. You were able to kind of take this sort of new thing later in life and really like run with it in probably in a different way than somebody that didn't have that business background might not have been able to.
Yeah. I think it was more applicable to me when I had stores because it was a physical location. And then even working at Goldman Sachs, it's like a physical business with team members. So online it's been different, but I think I wouldn't be able to do the online without having done the previous business.
Absolutely. Because online, I think a lot of times people think it's really simple to just like you put it out online and people will find you, and it does not work that way, right? There's a lot that you have to do to get there. Yeah. Well, so let's start with how you got into fitness later in life. I totally hear the story.
So I'm probably like a lot of women where when I was younger, I took dance classes. I did ice skating, like stuff that my mom had me going. I was never really into team sports. I don't know if it's because I don't know. I just never signed up for team sports. So I honestly was not an athlete growing up. I did fun stuff that
move your body kind of stuff. Yeah,
exactly. And around the time when I was getting a divorce, so it was like my early 40s. Actually, I was 40. I was separate. I had left my marriage and moved into my own apartment. So that the first time in 10 years that I was living by myself again. And to, I guess, kind of escape the loneliness of being at home. And also just, going through divorce is really awful, whether it was your decision or not. It's just not easy. So I started going to the gym. It was across the street from me. And I was never a gym rat before. I was just like, oh, let me go there. And I started taking classes, and the classes I gravitated towards were the strength ones. So, just stuff using dumbbells. And I found that I really enjoyed it. It was very empowering. Like, oh, I'm picking up weights. And I'd always ask the teacher questions like, well, how do I do that? And how do I do this? And, after a while, they don't want to just keep answering all these questions. So I did, they're like, listen, lady.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily recommend this to everyone, but I was curious. So I signed up for an intensive personal training course, not because I thought I would be doing that, but I was like, oh, this is a great way to learn everything. Because where can you go to learn how to do stuff properly?
Right. Good point. Other than working with a personal trainer, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I didn't feel like I had the funds to work with a personal trainer, and I like the academic aspect of it. So that's why I signed up for a personal training course. And in the course, it was actually Equinox that held this. They have like a special institute which I learned later, it was really a feeder into their personal training career, for hiring trainers there.
I
And they're like,
imagine,
oh, yeah, right.
yeah.
And they had told us, if you're interested, just apply to your nearest Equinox. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do this part-time, because at that time was also post financial crisis,
Oh,
where
2008.
my jewelry business was really being affected by that. Like no one was shopping, and people were struggling. And at the same time, the timing of it's interesting. That's when people weren't really online shopping, but we're starting to. So the financial crisis is happening and people are starting to shop more online. So that really made me rethink my business. And that's why I was thinking, oh, let me just do personal training on the side. And like we know, you really can't ever do a business on the side.
Right, exactly. I love the idea of the side hustle. That's a good story.
Yeah. So I just started getting really into it. And then that's how I started. I started my career in fitness at Equinox.
Oh, nice. So
and that's how I got into fitness.
Gotcha. And so you started working with people really one-on-one initially. Is that how it went? Okay. Did you also teach classes there too?
No, it's just one-on-one. So their group instructor, that whole path is a different path. But
gotcha.
So I started working in fitness because I really love strength training. But you're also, it's almost like when you're teaching it, you also want to learn more because you want to help people. And and I think in general, women feel definitely more the imposter syndrome, where you feel like, oh, I don't know enough. I need to know more in order to, right. And that was exactly it. So, and that's when I started started working with barbells and kettlebells. And I hired one of my colleagues to be my trainer. So that's when I finally hired a trainer that helped me learn how to use barbells correctly. And kettlebells too, went for certification and trained with other colleagues. But all of that just to feel comfortable, like, oh, I can teach this because I know it. But the whole fake it when it just is hard, I think, as a woman coming later in life into something like that, to fake it. For
sure. Because I mean, there's such a societal thing around like post 40, right? Like it just, it shifts so much of how like women are looked at and all of those things. And so that's why, I find what you're doing so inspiring, and we need more women out there really showcasing that. Even if not only like if you were in your 20s and working out and you can keep doing that into your 50s and beyond, but if you even weren't into that at all, and particularly, I think this kind of strength training where you're talking about barbells and things like that, women can be definitely sort of scared of those things, right? I mean, ideas around what it's going to do to your body, it's going to bulk you up too much, or you just feel like you just don't have the strength to do it, or just feel like, I don't want anybody looking at me at the gym while I'm doing these things, right?
Everything you said. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's very, all of those are common. And I get it. Like, when we were teenagers, we weren't hanging out with our girlfriends to go lift weights, whereas teenage boys do. And I get it. They have a different, everyone's at that age is concerned about how they look to the opposite sex, and guys will go lift with each other. So all that stuff is more familiar. But for us, if we didn't grow up playing a team sport where your coach had you lift in the gym, it is intimidating. And we think people are looking. And
everybody's really focused on their own stuff though, right?
Oh yeah, totally. There's a reason. And there's a reason why there's mirrors in the gym, because everyone's sitting there looking at
themselves. Totally. Yeah. I love that. So when you started working out, initially at 40 and going through the divorce, like, did you find that the weights in particular were calling to you because they did something specific for you?
So I think when I first got into weights, I think it just made me feel good and feel stronger. And it sounds so generic, but to me, it felt like, wow, I like being able to do stuff that's maybe unexpected from me. Like, I was trying yoga and stuff too, but that just didn't call me the same way as weights do. And even with clients I work with, so in the beginning, it might feel intimidating because here's another one, like afraid to drop it on your head.
For like sure.
Just thinking that you don't have the control of it, but you would always start with something manageable, even if like I thought it was, and even if as a trainer, I'm like, I know she could do heavier. The whole mental aspect of it is so important. Like you need to feel like you can handle it before you move up to a heavier weight.
That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. So do you feel like as you were, weightlifting and getting into that and being called to it, did that impact other aspects of your life too?
Yes. So, I mean, I think it's like with anything that we find success in, you're like, oh, I can't believe I went through a year of whatever training for this and passing this certification that was had a physical test. And yeah, I think it's like anything we do, it kind of greases the groove in our brain of, I've done this before, so I can still handle that. Like even traveling abroad. I know it sounds like who wouldn't want to travel abroad? But when you're
a lot of people are scared to travel abroad for sure. Yeah.
Because you're like leaving your familiarity. But then when you go the first time, you're like, oh, even though I don't speak the language in this other country, I didn't die. I
could handle it. People are generally kind and will help you if you get like stuck in a situation. Yeah.
Yes. And so in the same way, it's like even with lifting weights, I think, and there is something empowering as a woman to be able to pick something up that if someone's like, oh, do you need help? I'm like, no, I got this. Yeah. It's nice to have the offer, but it's really nice to know, like, I don't have to wait for someone else to come help me do this. Yeah. Pick this up, bring this up the stairs, whatever it is.
Yeah. And I definitely want to get into the importance of that as we age too.
Yes. As you know, from my feed, I talk about a lot, just being lifting, especially over 45, more so over 50. Yes. Why it's important for our bodies.
Yes. I'll start off by saying personally, so I've been a dancer for my whole life really, but like I taught, in my 30s and even that, I love dance for the simple fact of dance, but working out still was kind of like about, well, how I wanted my body to look and things like that. If I did extra workout besides dancing in my 40s, it's become a mental thing for me. Like it actually helps my, my mental health, the mental stability. Yeah. Like if I'm not doing some kind of movement, pretty consistently. And so, I try and sort of work with my cycle a little bit in terms of heavier and more intense stuff at certain times and lighter stuff at other times. But if I don't, like, I really feel it in my mental health, which wasn't so much the case when I was younger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally understand. Yep.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about, I think that power with weights of really making you feel like if I can do this, I can do anything, you can like, because I feel that even just in some basic weightlifting I do sometimes, I'm like, I can take on like my work in a different way. I can like put myself out in the world in a different way. And that's what I love about that sort of like connection that you don't necessarily think about going into doing this kind of, exercise. Everything
you said. Yes. I was just thinking, trying to figure out how to word it when, especially, any exercise, but specifically with strength training, lifting weights, it's a moving meditation in that, when the reason why it's like maybe you say mentally you need it. It's so easy for us to get caught up in whatever it is that's stressing us out, or like going through menopause. It's shitty at times. But when you're there picking up weights, you have to focus on what you're doing because you don't want the weight to drop on your head, right? Whatever. So, but with any exercise, you have to actually be in the moment. So I know, and that's why I think what it is about exercise, like it is an escape because you have to not think about other stuff if you don't want to hurt yourself.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's such a good point, because it truly does bring you into your body and that focus is truly there. Yeah. Which there's not much else in our current society that does it that well, obviously massages and things like that can be helpful, but this is something you can do for yourself every day. Yeah.
In terms of with weights, what I was thinking is, how specifically lifting weights also makes you feel empowered is because you use a numerical number, like I'm lifting 20 pounds, I'm lifting 25. So that is a numerical representation of your progress, which is why people care about the weight. So like you said, I feel like a badass, I'm lifting X amount. And then and what's, and you have a gauge because you know what you've lifted before, you know what you'll be and then 6 months later you can see what you're capable of, and you definitely do see the difference on how easy something is to pick up 10 times versus how it was 6 months ago.
Right. So let's talk about some of the, really important reasons to lift weights as we age as women.
So one statistic that stands out so much in my head, it was actually, I think Dr. Stacy Sims wrote about it in Roar, is that between the ages of 50 and 70, we lose 30% of our strength. And then after 70, it nosedives. And just having and training clients over 70, like I have one gentleman where he and I started together when he was 77 and he's 83 now. And between 77 and 80, like he was very active, very strong. So like could do push-ups and all that kind of stuff. But between 80 and 83, I've seen just a huge difference. And he's not an inactive guy. And so when we get older, it does, whatever happens accelerates, whatever's like happening. I don't want to say decay, but it's just accelerated. So that like stands out. And then for women, the statistic about just with osteoporosis. So women 50 or older, 67%. So that's 1 out of every 3 women have either low bone mass or osteoporosis. We never think about, we hear about it. Like even myself, I think about, osteoporosis. That's not something that happens to me. I just think of little old ladies who are hunched over, but just with menopausal hormone changes.
With estrogen, the estrogen drop, which is so important for bone health. So when it goes away at menopause, that's when we start to have these issues.
Exactly. Or even like, with our heart health, right? Like, and some doctors, it's so weird. Like I went for my annual this past year, and the doctor's like, "Oh, your cholesterol's really high. You've never had that before." And he didn't even, he's just like, "Oh, we'll have to see what happens next year." He did not associate it with menopause. The fact that I'm in. I'm like, this is a freaking doctor. And it's
they're not. They are definitely not trained in these things at all, right? I mean, it's and then, the stories that I could tell that my clients go through.
I mean, I was just like, I've never had high cholesterol. All of a sudden, one year you don't, and then I'm going through menopause.
Yep, exactly. It's a natural progression of the body. It's what the body does when we lose those hormones. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're protecting bone health by doing this. We're protecting our heart health too. And then I imagine it helps with memory and everything also.
I've seen those research about how it's helpful for memory. I don't know enough to speak on that. I mean, I just know for physically, even besides protecting bone health, that when you lift weights, it also stimulates bone creation. So from what I understand, from your 20s on, the rate that our bodies create bone versus the rate that the bone breaks down, it just shifts where we're going into a negative, right? And then there's a lot more bone loss post-menopause. I think the 3 years post-menopause. So yes, lifting weights helps create bone or stimulates bone creation. And just the fact that we just lose strength and muscle. As
you got to work older, a little extra harder, right? Because we're in that deficit time.
But it's not all bad. But we have control. So even though we don't have control over our hormones, we do have control over our strength.
Yes. And I know at least for cycling women that lifting weights increases their testosterone. Is that also the case in menopause where, obviously your testosterone goes to much lower levels too, than when you were cycling, but we still have testosterone, in menopause?
I don't know enough about whether it helps increase. I don't know enough about that.
Gotcha. I would imagine that it would, because because it is such an important part and sort of the most natural and quick way to increase your testosterone as a cycling woman, right? Sometimes, especially in perimenopause, some places will go into, let's just give you testosterone pellets right off the bat, and I'm like, well, let's actually get you lifting weights first and see what that does, because within 6 months, sometimes the testosterone can go up quite a bit just from that. So, and it makes sense to me partly with, I mean, estrogen is such a big thing around bone growth, but also testosterone is part of that. So I could see how it would, help support your adrenals, which are what is producing the testosterone, in your menopausal years, and really supporting that. And so how cool is it that we have this very accessible thing to help support all of these areas, right? So I'm curious. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I thought of something that one of the topics we brought up earlier. So as you're talking about testosterone, so back to the idea of the fear of getting bulky, because I think that is the fear.
Yeah.
So you probably know the exact number. I think we have less than 3% of the total amount of testosterone a man has. So
I think, somewhere around there.
Yes. So the fear, like we're talking testosterone. I don't want anyone to think, well, I'm going to get bulky then if I'm lifting weights. So testosterone is important in the muscle repair and also growth hormone to create muscle. It is really hard to get bulky,
right?
Because we have such a small amount of testosterone compared to a man. So for us to look like a man, you'd have to be
taking steroids or testosterone, right? Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't know that a lot in bodybuilding, whether you're a male or female in that industry, testosterone, taking steroids is common. So they don't, unless they have a specific competition that's called like natural, all the other ones do not test. So when people see that, it's because they are taking testosterone. Yeah. And even someone like The Rock, even though we all love The Rock, you talk to any trainer, male trainer, like I'll ask male colleagues, I'm like, you think he's taking, they're like, he 100% is on.
Yeah.
So to look
how old is he? He's like in his mid 50s or 60s or something. Yeah. No, I mean,
So that just the note for all of us, all of you listening, it is so hard to get bulky. Like even men who have more a lot more testosterone than us struggle to get that size of The Rock.
Yeah.
Like you have to be lifting a lot. You have to, like I've had colleagues that, male colleagues who are trainers, they eat on a schedule, like literally an alarm goes off every 3 hours. They'll eat to a point where it's not even enjoyable. They're just maintaining a calorie, a certain level of calories to supplement what their training is in order to have that muscle size. So it is hard to get bulky.
It's complicated to get there. So, so ladies, don't worry about that at all. Yeah. And I mean, I think really the women that I know that lift weights, like they just have that awesome definition, and that's really what most of us want. We like that definition.
I'd like to say aesthetics don't matter, but it is nice if you have definition arms and you look in the mirror, like, I like my arms.
Like, I could see that on there. Yeah, exactly. For sure.
Absolutely.
And I think, also as women age, a lot of times they worry about the under stuff. Right. And so I'm assuming lifting weights helps with that.
It helps with everything, but yes. Consistent weights. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm curious for women that, struggle already to maybe move their bodies and they're like, maybe like early, mid 40s, even late 40s. How do you sort of inspire them to, that this is going to be okay for their bodies, I guess, to say, first of all, and then also to get them moving?
So if you've never done anything or you are not weights, let's go with if you don't do anything. The first thing I tell people is I want you to start going on daily walks. I know it sounds too easy, but just straight up walking, important for your physical, your mental, your heart health, etc. And it starts creating a good habit. And you probably seen from so not just walks, if you're going through menopause, it is helpful for your sleep.
Which is like issue number one for women in their 40s.
Yes. And in case anyone's like, how does it help sleep? It's not just the movement. It helps your your internal body clock. So seeing sunlight is helpful at certain times of the day to help regulate sleep. So that's one part. But if you're a little bit more active in terms of starting to strength training, it can be intimidating. And I think you need to understand how to do the body weight movements first.
Okay.
So like being able to squat, to lunge, to do certain things, working on push-ups. So none of this requires weight, being able to move like that before you start, using dumbbells. Because if you can move well, then you'll move well with weight. So in terms of where I guess what would make it accessible, it is helpful to have a trainer. It is helpful to work with someone. It doesn't even have to be in person. It could even be, on Zoom or whatever way, but I like to make it most accessible. Even if you found something on YouTube, being able to move body weight and strength training is I think it has this like big aura around like, oh, strength training. It's really, there's 6 basic movements that everything is based on, which is a squat, a lunge, some kind of pushing movement like a push-up or pushing something over your head.
Damn those push-ups. No, I'm just kidding. They're good. I know.
A pulling movement. Like, so this is the way we move. We pull stuff towards us, or you're pulling it up from the floor up to your chest. A carry, which is like carrying groceries. Let's see, I got squat. Oh, and then a lunging movement, like going down on one knee to tie your shoelace. So that's strength training. And then, adding weights makes it more strength training.
And I'm sure some women are wondering, particularly with the focus on the ass these days, that kind of bubble butt comes more from just adding more weights, right? As you do lunges and things like that.
Yes, it is from being consistent.
Yes.
And then as you add weights.
Gotcha.
Yes. So if you're going from nothing, just even squatting, lunging, hinging, that's like doing glute bridges or deadlifts, even with, even if without weight, just moving those muscles, because remember, we're sitting for most of our day. Yeah. So moving those muscles is what's going to be helpful for creating some muscles in your butt.
Yes.
or strengthening the muscles in your butt.
Lifting that booty right on up. So funny how, right, different body parts get focused on in different times in history, right?
Yes.
And if in a few years the butt will be gone. So I definitely have some clients that I think, definitely will struggle with energy, and they don't because they're expending all their energy on work and taking care of their family and stuff like that. Do you have a lot of clients come to you initially being like, I don't know if I have the energy to do this?
Yeah. And I think also it comes with like perimenopause. Some people just feel tired all the time. So it's like hormonal.
Yep.
And then you're not sleeping. So all of it's combined. But I think for most people, when they found that they're tired, when you start moving a little, even taking a little walk, you find that your spirit and your energy is lifted. It's just getting your blood flowing.
Absolutely. And, I tell people so often, it's like, if you think about how we evolved as humans, there was basics that we needed. And that's kind of how we lived our life, like getting enough sleep, getting like good food, being hydrated, being in the sun. And so really connecting on that circadian rhythm, and so those foundations and movement, obviously coming back to those foundations are always going to lift up your energy, right? I think sometimes we're looking for this like big complicated thing to like get your energy back, or like what is wrong with you. And I'm like, often it's, you got to scale back on your stress, the things that are bringing in stress, and come back to these foundations, right? And then you're naturally going to start to see that energy increase. And then you get to build on that, right? Then you're like, okay, I can walk, and now I can add a little bit of weights in, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So
I think it's also like trying to find what you were saying about how to get started. So it's also trying to figure out what kind of person you are, in the sense, do you like to do stuff by yourself? Do you find, and it's no criticism of who you are, the person you are, but knowing I only can do that if I have someone,
right. You need somebody to be responsible to, or to accountability is I guess the better word for it. Yeah.
And some people don't need that. Some people people are like, oh, I can't afford a trainer. Like some people do, whether people like trainers, not because the only time they were going to do it, I could have clients who's like, I would never do this on my own.
Exactly.
So, and they know that when they don't want to lose their money. So they pay someone and they're like, I'm not going to waste my money. So I will show up.
Yep. That's
like
100% what happens in my business too. You know, it's like you go in and you're like, oh, I'm all excited. And I'm like, it's important that people pay because then they're going to do the work. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fine. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Works,
like for us to know that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
And some people like, oh, I just like going to class or, you know, being in class, and it's the social part that makes them enjoy it more, you know? So yeah, figuring out what it is that helps you show up.
Right. Right. And I think too, you know, obviously with COVID and everything having to be inside at home for a year and a half or however long, depending on where you were, you know, I think there was a lot of people that fell off because they didn't have that accountability, you know, they're not the kind of person that can sort of motivate on their own. And I mean, I think a lot of us in general as social beings, we're going to do better in a group setting. You know, I mean, that's part of why I like doing group programs like the one that you're going to be, you know, a guest expert in, because you get that support from other people that have a similar vision or a similar goal to get towards. Right. And that, there's also a little sense, I think sometimes I can think about me in classes too, competition in a good way. Right.
Yes. Yeah. like I can't drop off now. Like everyone else is still going.
Exactly. You know, and not to say you should ever push yourself harder than, you know, your body wants you to, but just like at home, if I'm doing some video on YouTube, I'm like, oh, let me check my phone, or, you know, like, let me go to like grab some water. And then 20 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I should get back to that. Right. Versus if you're in a class or you're at the gym, you're going to be like, okay, I'm getting this done.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Less distractions, and there's people, right, and everyone's there for a purpose together.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you work primarily then with women over age 40, age 50, or do you kind of work with all? Okay. Nice.
I mean, I have, I would say 99%. Yes.
Yeah. And then you work with some men too, sounds like.
Yes. And I just been working them a long time. So
Gotcha.
I know who I love to work with. I understand. And that's, it's by design.
Yeah. I love it. So tell us about your program that you do online.
Oh, so it's called Master Your Body Mentorship. So it's, I have a 12-week one-on-one program, but it's online where I work with women 50 or older who want to, I guess, either get back into strength training or yes, they're not for beginners. So someone who's done it before and hasn't been doing it in a while, and they need someone to take some of the guesswork and the organizing of what they're supposed to do, you know, take that obstacle away so that I create their workouts. You know, it's very, it's probably like what you do. It's very one-on-one in terms of you help guide them hormonally or nutritionally. I guide them on their strength journey. So that's where pull up might be a goal, or just being consistent is a goal, you know, so that's, and then the other thing I do is it's a live online strength, small group strength training sessions.
Okay.
And that's through straightupstrong.com.
Nice.
So I'm coaching, or my partner's coaching, and it's different than a Peloton class where you're following us. You just we demonstrate the strength moves, and then it's like a personal training, and then you're in the session doing it at home.
Nice.
And I'm watching you, and I'm coaching.
You can say, you can see them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see, we can see each other, but I can see you through Zoom, and I'm like, I want you to lift your chest a little more, bring your shoulder blades. So it's basically a small group personal training from your own home.
That's awesome. How many times a week do you do that?
3 times a week. And on Mondays and Wednesdays, we do it at 6 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m. Eastern, and then Saturdays at 9. So everyone who's one of our members is working out 3 times, who's lifting weights 3 times a week. I wouldn't say just working out. They're lifting weights. It's strength. It's not a HIIT class.
That's awesome. How long is that class each time?
About 45, 50 minutes from beginning to end. And we always warm up. You have your strength block, and then we have a cool down.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I'm like, that sounds pretty cool. I'll have to think about that.
Come try class.
I know. I need to. I have my little like 10-pound weights here at home.
It's all good.
Well, this was awesome. I loved hearing, all of this so important information. And part of why I wanted you to come on the podcast is to inspire women that think, I mean, I see it all the time. So many women are just like, after 40, everything's just going downhill. There's nothing I can do. I just have to like be in this crazy change that's going on. And the reality is we can take a lot of control in the situation, right? We don't have all control over everything, obviously, but there's a lot of options, and that again, getting back to those foundations can make such huge changes in how we feel. And I love, in my idea of perimenopause in particular, and even into menopause, is like, this is the time of a woman's life that she can really decide, like, who do I want to be for the rest of my life? A lot of times it's like, the kids maybe are teenagers or already gone, or, there's maybe some other big transition in her life, or maybe she's thinking about starting a second career, but now is the time, and really creating that life that you want and feeling good in your body is so important.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to add one fact. So the gym that I work out of, I'm probably, I want to say I'm the oldest person, but I'm probably the second oldest. There's one 57-year-old woman and I'm 51, and everyone else is in their 20s, 30s, maybe a little sprinkles of 40s. But I'm probably in the top 5% of strength, like in terms of what I can lift. So they were like, oh, Tina's the one that's older, but she's lifting more than all the 30-year-olds. So I remember, and this started after 40. So for anyone, is possible to change how you feel in your body and what your body can do.
Yes. I love that. I love that so much. That's so cool. And, I hope that other women are inspired to start showing up at their gyms too, and representing like you are over time. So I think that'd be so cool. All of a sudden you're just like, all these like 50+ women are the ones that are like owning everything at the gym.
I once had this post where I was like, I want to have a shirt that just be like, I'm 51, bitches.
Yeah, exactly. Sup? You want to come out? Yeah. I love it. That's so cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. And I hope this inspired someone to want to go start lifting weights.
For sure. And when we have you on the Hormone Breakthrough Blueprint program, we're going to dive deeper into some of these specifics of things that women can do as they age and everything too. So people will have a chance to really kind of deep dive. This was a good sort of introduction. So for any of you guys that are interested in that program, you can check it out on my website, christinegarvin.com/Hormone Breakthrough Blueprint. We have lots of amazing guest experts that are going to be a part of that program. So I can't wait to have you on for that.
So excited.
Yes. And again, your Instagram is at Iron Strong Fit, and that's the best place for people to find you, right? Yep. Great.
Oh, or the website straightupstrong.com, which
straightupstrong.com. Cool. And that's how they can like get involved in your classes and everything. Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.